Hi everyone, I'm Thomas from Backscatter, and in this video, I'm going to cover the best underwater settings for the GoPro Hero 13. GoPros are our favorite action cameras on the market since they have the most available accessories that make underwater video capture as painless as possible, such as great color with available filters, super smooth stability, and high-quality wide-angle and macro lenses. I'm going to walk through step-by-step of the setup process as if you're unboxing your Hero 13 for the first time. I'll cover the initial setup, how the dashboard layout works, and our favorite preferences in the main menu. Next, I'll go into how we use our current favorite custom presets for switching between the different shooting modes and break down the specific settings for the best results in wide-angle video, macro video, and photos. The latest updated settings will be available as a downloadable PDF sheet in the comments below and at backscatter.com. Make sure to check this since GoPro does change their firmware from time to time. Also, I'll cover everything you need to know about how to use flip filters for in-camera color correction, the Sharp Wide Lens Pro for shooting bigger, wider scenes, and the Plus 15 Macromate mini lens to focus closer to capture small macro subjects. So let's dive in and check out the best settings for the GoPro Hero 13. Before diving into the settings, let's cover the essential accessories needed for our GoPro setup. We've got two rigs here, one for wide and one that's set up for macro. So let's break down the components of each of these rigs. All these accessories that we're going to cover will be linked in the video description as well. First, we're using the GoPro brand protective underwater dive housing. The camera itself is waterproof to 33 feet, 10 meters, but the housing allows us to take it down to 196 feet or 60 meters. The housing provides an extra layer of protection and allows us to mount accessories such as flip filters, Macromate mini lens, and the Sharp Wide Lens Pro. These accessories are absolutely critical for overcoming the biggest limitations that the GoPro faces: wide-angle color correction, close focus for macro, and sharper corners with a wider, more epic field of view. For underwater video, the most important feature a camera can have is the ability to set a manual white balance. This restores warm red, orange, and yellow color tones that are filtered out by water at depth, resulting in low contrast cyan and blue footage. The deeper you go, the more of these red, orange, and yellow colors are naturally filtered out. GoPros are unable to set a custom white balance and require filters for color correction. By using color correction filters with the GoPro, we can now restore the warm red, orange, and yellow tones. Flip filters take us to a step further and are interchangeable for different levels of color corrections needed at different depths. The flip system is modular, and you can shoot wide and macro using the same frame. Just remove the two screws that hold the side filter in place and swap it out for the Plus 15 Macromate mini lens. The Macromate Mini allows the camera to focus much closer than the camera's typical focus point, allowing it to fill the frame with subjects that are about the size of a golf ball while maintaining sharp focus. Without the Macromate Mini, the Hero 13 can't focus closer than about 12 inches away, making macro subjects appear too far away and too small in the frame. For fish portraits and larger size macro subjects, the Plus 10 close-up lens will allow you to fill the frame with basketball-sized subjects. With the flip filter system, you can easily swap between filters, macro, and close-up lenses, allowing for plenty of flexibility so you can customize your rig to best suit your shooting needs. To significantly upgrade the image quality of your GoPro when shooting wide-angle, the Sharp Wide Lens Pro will provide a 140-degree field of view, increase in sharpness, detail, and contrast, all while allowing you to focus closer. The Sharp Wide Lens Pro can also use color correction filters, so you can still correct color in the camera while using this lens. The Sharp Wide Lens Pro is a corrective optic that is designed from the ground up to correct optical issues such as refraction that occur when shooting underwater. The Sharp Wide Lens Pro is a must-have for any shooter looking to capture wide-angle shots with the Hero 13, and we really can't imagine shooting wide-angle video without it. To mount the GoPro, we use our wide double-handled tray. The wide double-handled tray provides more stability than just a single handle or a selfie stick, and provides us with a platform to mount accessories such as control arms, buoyancy, lanyards, and lighting. The wide double-handled tray can mount an additional arch plate over the handles. This adds an additional handle point that's convenient for both carrying your rig and handing it up to boat staff. The arch also provides 3 more mounting locations for adding additional accessories. Control arms are mounted to the top of the handles and hold our lights. There are 2 types of control arms, flex arms and double ball arms. Flex arms are inexpensive, lightweight, and simple to aim, but are less maneuverable, can't add any flotation, and are less robust than double ball arms. Double ball arms are a bigger initial investment, but are more maneuverable, more robust, and can add buoyancy, which is critical to keep your rig trim and comfortable to shoot. Because of this, we prefer double ball arms over flex arms. However, flex arms are still a good choice if you're on a budget. For lighting, GoPro cameras only have one option: video lights. GoPros have no way to synchronize with a flash for photography and must rely on a constant light source such as video lights for both video and photo. Our rigs are equipped with the backscatter macro-wide 4300 lights, which are compact, versatile video lights that pair great with GoPro. Adding a light to the mix will help increase image quality, especially in deeper, darker environments, and it's critical for exposing close-up macro video. When shooting wide angle, it is best to use 2 macro-wide 4300s in wide mode for an even coverage of your entire scene. When shooting macro, you can use the macro-wide 4300 in macro mode, activating the spot beam, and use a single light overhead of your subject to create depth and contrast with your macro subject. The last accessory we'll check out is a tripod. Tripods are required for macro video, and without them, the footage will be unstable and shaky. Adding a tripod to your tray will create a stable platform for steady, professional-looking macro footage. To activate the GoPro for the first time, you will need a smartphone to download and use the GoPro Quick app. You will need a strong internet connection and to be able to connect your phone to the camera via Bluetooth in order to update the camera. It is important to take care of this step as soon as you get the camera out of the box at home. You definitely don't want to be trying to activate your GoPro while you're out on a trip on a remote location where connectivity might be an issue. Now, when powering on the GoPro for the first time, it will prompt you to select a language, agree to their terms and conditions, and turn GPS on or off. We always set GPS to off since it doesn't work well underwater. It will then ask you to turn on voice control. We usually turn this off since it's not useful for use underwater, or issuing voice commands is kind of difficult. To finish activation, the GoPro will present you with a QR code, and you can use your phone's camera to scan it to activate the GoPro. Alternatively, you can add the GoPro to the Quick app by clicking the GoPro section on the bottom right corner, then add camera by clicking the plus GoPro symbol up in the top right-hand corner. Make sure the Quick app has all permissions set to on with your phone if prompted. This will make sure the app and the camera can communicate properly, as the camera will need to update by pairing to your phone via Bluetooth. Once complete, you can name your GoPro or keep the GoPro's default designation. The app may prompt you to set up an auto-download system with their cloud service. We don't typically use this since we always download our video files to a computer using the micro SD card for editing and storage. From the main shooting screen on the camera, swipe down with the touchscreen to access the dashboard. This screen has 8 icons along with the date and other info at the top of the screen. If you tap these icons, you will turn them on or off or access additional options. If the icon is blue, that option is on, while gray indicates it's off. We set the dashboard up as follows. Make sure voice control is set to off. This is the default from our earlier setup. Then set camera volume to off. This will turn off those loud beeps which are on by default every time you press a button or the camera records. This is mostly a personal preference, but we don't find the beeps to be useful. Next, set screensaver to off. This is a really important setting to turn off since the screensaver will make the screen go black. This is different from auto power off and is another feature used to save battery. Screensaver is a major pain since it turns your screen black while you're shooting, forcing you to shoot blind. For this reason, always make sure screensaver is set to off so you'll never lose sight of your subjects. Now, set screen lock to off. When turned on, screen lock locks the GoPro's touchscreen, making you unlock it to use it. On the next row, you'll find front display, which we set to off from actual screen, which is the default. Unless you are shooting a ton of selfies, we keep the front screen off to save battery. For orientation, we'll set this to locked. This will keep the screen from rotating while using the camera. Rather than rotating the camera to capture vertical video, we find it best to change the framing, which we will cover a little later on. Now head over to LEDs. Set this to all on. This way you can easily see if your camera is recording. The last dashboard setting on your Hero 13 is lens attachment. The default is set to auto detect. Using this mode, the GoPro will automatically detect any GoPro brand lens mods being used. If you don't have any lens mods and don't plan on getting any, you can select standard lens. If you have or plan on getting lens mods, you can keep it set to the default of auto detect. Please note, do not select any of the other lens mod options when using the camera. This will radically reduce the amount of Pro Tune settings that we can use later on. Now that we have made our dashboard changes, we don't have to worry about setting them again, as the camera will keep these selections no matter what mode we're in. Now, let's head over to the preference settings. To do this, swipe over right to show the next screen. This will show us pair device controls and preferences. First, select controls. The Hero 13 is set by default to Easy. Easy uses a simplified interface which is meant for new shooters, but this keeps us from accessing the key settings to get the most out of the Hero 13 for underwater shooting. To change this, tap the controls box and then swipe the controls up to Pro, and then tap again to confirm. Next, head back to the previous menu and select Preferences, then General. If the default setting is the one we want to use, we'll just skip it and move on. We're only going to change the settings that we need to. Default preset needs to be changed to last used rather than last used video. The difference here is that last used will resume in the last mode you were using, while last used video will always set the camera back to video when it was turned off. If you're using time-lapse or photo mode and restart your GoPro while using last used video, the GoPro will default back to video mode, which doesn't really make a ton of sense. Next is auto power off, which is set to 15 minutes or never. 5 minutes is the default, but we usually set it to never since we never want to miss the action when using these cameras. If you want to save battery, you can always turn the camera off between shots. If you might forget to turn off the camera before or after your dive and are more concerned about saving battery, set it to 15 minutes. Now back out of General and head over to Displays and Brightness. We set this to 100% to overcome any glare and to easily see the screen in bright environments. If you're in darker environments, you can lower the brightness of the screen down to 60%, which will help save some battery life as well. This is best used if you're diving at night or in otherwise dark conditions such as cold water. Next, move over to the regional section and check the regional format. This should be set to 60 Hz, which is the North American standard for NTSC. If you're in a country using the PAL standard, you want to select 50 Hz. This slightly affects the frame rate. If you're in the US, just keep it at 60 Hz. Now for our last step, head back to the preference menu to format the card. This is something you should do whenever you use a new card or anytime you want to wipe a used card for your next shoot. Formatting your card will erase all memory, so make sure you have it backed up prior to this step. To format your card, scroll down to Reset, then tap Format SD Card, then tap Format to confirm. Always make sure to format your card rather than just deleting the files on it, as this can corrupt your card over time. You may notice that from the dashboard, you can swipe over to the left menu showing the Manage SD Card option. This only deletes your files rather than formatting the card, and it should be avoided. The Hero 13 relies on a touchscreen to control the camera. And once the camera is sealed up in the housing, we lose these controls. This locks you out of all settings choices other than the settings assigned to each shooting mode when you cycle through the mode button. To solve this problem, we need to make custom preset shooting modes with the best underwater settings for video and photo so we can quickly cycle between these presets without using the touchscreen. To get around this problem, we need to access what we call the secret menu. To activate the secret menu, hold down the power mode button that's on the side of the camera, then press the record button on the top of the camera. Once done, you'll see the default custom presets. To cycle through the presets, press the power mode button, then to select one of the presets, press the record button. Now, our next steps will be creating our own list of custom presets for the best results for underwater shooting. To do this, we'll need to use the touchscreen. We're going to start off by making different custom presets for the most popular ways to shoot the GoPro underwater. We'll start with wide-angle video, and then we'll move on to macro video and then photo settings. All this info is available with our downloadable PDF cheat sheet in the description or at backscatter.com. So if you miss anything or want a hard copy for future reference, it's always available to you. We will keep our cheat sheets up to date if there are any changes as well. Hey everybody, hope you're enjoying this video. You know, you can join our family by buying your underwater photo and video gear from us here at Backscatter. Every purchase includes free lifetime tech support, we'll beat any price hands down, and we ship worldwide daily. Our in-house authorized warranty service center has you covered for any maintenance and repairs. Here at Backscatter, we dive, shoot, and service everything we sell. Whether you're point and shoot or professional, we look forward to helping you meet your underwater imaging goals. Now back to the video. Making a custom preset is easy, and we're going to start with our wide-angle video settings first. First, make sure you're in video mode. The custom presets will only be available in the mode in which you have assigned them, so video presets will be in video mode and photo presets will be in photo mode. While you're in the main shooting screen, tap the default standard preset at the bottom center of the screen. This will take you to the preset menu and will show you the default presets included with the camera. Now, let's set our wide-angle settings by clicking the Create New Presets with the plus symbol on the bottom. The next menu will say New Preset at the top, select Video, then press the check on the top right of the screen. From here, we can make our custom edits to our video setting. The first option we'll see is Profile. Keep this in Standard, which is the GoPro's native picture profile. HDR or High Dynamic Range mode will produce overly vivid colors and will require an HDR monitor to view, while Log produces flat colors and needs post-production editing to bring color back to your video. Overall, Standard is the easiest to work with and will produce the best colors out of camera for underwater shooting. Next up are Framing, Resolution, and Frame Rate. These are the 3 most important video settings since they determine the amount of information the camera is capturing. For framing, pick 16:9 for traditional video format. If you plan on shooting vertical video, set the framing to 9:16 or 8:7. 9:16 will provide you with vertical video perfect for Instagram and other social media applications, while 8:7 will give you the flexibility to crop in post-production. 8:7 records using the entire sensor, so you can crop in post-production to 16:9 for traditional video or a vertical crop for social media. Just keep in mind you will need to do this in post. If you go with framing other than 16:9, make sure to give it its own custom preset so you don't get your settings mixed up. For resolution, you have multiple options including 1080 HD, 2.7K, 4K, and 5.3K. All these options have their place and will depend largely on what you plan on doing with your footage and how powerful your computer is. Overall, we recommend shooting at the highest resolution possible based on what your computer can easily play back. But we'll go over each resolution option so you can make the best decision for your shooting needs. 1080 HD is the lowest resolution, but it is the best choice if you own an older computer that can't handle larger 4K and 5.3K files, or don't plan on spending much time editing. 4K has been the standard for many years and is our go-to resolution. 4K is 4 times the resolution of 1080 HD. 4K files are large, making them more difficult to work with some computers. 5.3K has 91% more resolution than 4K and 665% more resolution than 1080 HD, and will produce even larger, more unwieldy files. We've been enjoying shooting 5.3K for that extra resolution. For this video, we're going to pick 4K, but you want to take some test clips and see how each resolution works with your computer and workflow. Next up is frame rate. We like to use 60 frames per second as our general purpose setting. This gives us the option to slow it down by 50% in post-production for slower, smoother looking footage. If you want to shoot specifically in slow motion, the GoPro can be shot at 240 frames per second at 1080 and 2.7K, or 120 frames per second in 1080 or 4K. This is ideal for fast action scenes, but it will create bigger file sizes and will generate the most heat buildup. If you want the option to shoot slow motion video, create a separate preset specifically for this type of shooting. For general shooting, it is best to stick with either 60 or 30 frames per second. 30 frames per second is a good choice if you're shooting in darker conditions, like an overcast day or in a low-vis environment. When shooting at 30 frames per second, the GoPro will default to a lower shutter speed, which provides the sensor with more light, brightening the scene. If your footage appears to be too dark or grainy, try using 30 frames per second to help brighten things up, though keep in mind you will not have those extra frames to slow down your video when editing. The digital lens setting sets the GoPro's field of view and will determine how wide or tight your clips will be. For wide angle, select W for wide, as this will provide us with a nice wide field of view. The other wider options are Superview SV or Hyperview HV are too wide and distorted, making for unnatural looking video. Next up is Hypersmooth, which is GoPro's in-camera stabilization system. Set this to on. Hypersmooth is going to crop your field of view, but the added stabilization is well worth it. The next section is Capture. For this setting, we're going to keep the defaults for wide angle. Moving on, we'll hit the Pro Tune settings. These are the advanced exposure and sound settings and will be the same for every preset we set up. Keep in mind, you will need to set them up individually for each of your presets. First is bit depth. Tap it and select 10-bit. 10-bit allows for a greater range of color, which is especially helpful when it comes to editing. Now set the bitrate from standard, the default, to high. This will improve the overall color and quality of the video. Next up is shutter, which is defaulted to auto. We want to keep the shutter set to auto since it'll always pick an appropriate shutter speed for your frame rate. This produces natural-looking footage with natural-looking motion blur. Following shutter is EV comp. Turn the EV comp down from the default of 0 by half a stop to -0.5. Turning it down to -0.5 will help you keep your highlights from overexposing and will increase contrast and color saturation. White balance is set to auto by default, and that's what we'll use. Auto is the best setting for underwater color if you're shooting with ambient light, flip filters, or video lights. ISO adjusts the sensor's sensitivity to light. GoPro cameras have a small sensor that requires a lot of light for the best image quality possible. The brighter the environment, the lower the ISO will be, and the better the image quality the GoPro will produce. In darker environments, the ISO will be higher and your clips will have worse image quality. Through our testing, we found it was best to keep it set to auto, as this provided the overall best results with the smoothest shadow and minimal noise overall. It is well known that GoPro cameras perform best with the max ISO set to 1600. This works great if you're shooting on land, but underwater, where conditions can easily shift or darken as you go deeper, ISO 1600 is just too limiting. Overall, it is best to play it safe with auto. In our tests, we did notice that auto ISO produces less noisy and grainy footage compared to max of ISO 3200 or 6400. And it is likely that this setting is using other exposure features to keep the image quality as clean as possible when using ISO set to auto. For sharpness, change this to low. I know this sounds like we're hurting our image quality, but we found medium and high to make the image look too crunchy. For denoise, the default is set to high, and we want to set this to medium. We notice when shooting at high, it will cause objects in the foreground to look soft and smoothed out in some scenarios. Medium is the sweet spot, allowing the GoPro to denoise the video while not affecting the overall image quality. Next is color, and we'll keep this to the default, which is natural. This will provide good color straight out of camera. Underneath, we'll find the audio section. Keep raw audio off. Audio is not important when shooting underwater, as we typically remove it and add background music to our videos. Next, turn off wind reduction, as wind will not be an issue when diving the camera underwater. Skip the dashboard section and move down to the shortcuts. Shortcuts are the icons on the main shooting screen that allow you to quickly access a selected feature when using the touchscreen. Since we're not using the touchscreen in the housing, we're going to turn all these shortcuts off. This way, we have a clear shooting screen. To turn off the shortcuts, press each of them and scroll up until you find Off, located at the top of the list. Now the last step is to name your preset. First, tick the check mark in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Then, make sure the Create Custom Name is selected, then tap the check mark at the top right corner again. From here, you can name your setting. We're going to name this setting Wide 4K 60, which stands for wide angle at 4K resolution at 60 frames per second. You can change the name depending on the frame rate or what the setting is used for, like slow-mo, vertical, or 5.3K. Once named, click the check mark at the top right-hand corner of the screen. And with that, your custom preset has been saved and is accessible through the secret menu. Earlier, we talked about filters and why they're an important accessory to add warm colors back into your GoPro's footage. Now, let's talk about when it's best to use them. We have noticed the way GoPros perceive color has changed from camera to camera, and we've tailored our flip filter material to provide the best underwater color correction possible for the latest GoPros. Our filters can either be used with the flip filter system or with the Sharp Wide Lens Pro. The Hero 13 will capture good color from the surface until about 20 feet or 6 meters. Once you hit this depth, it is best to use the dive filter. The dive filter will provide great color from 20 feet to about 45 feet or 6 to 14 meters. Once you go deeper, you'll want to use the deep filter, which has been designed for use from 45 to 80 feet, or 14 to 24 meters. Once you go deeper than this, the GoPro sensors will struggle to get enough light to the sensor, causing your video to look noisy. If you're diving deep, the best option is to remove your filters or add video lights, which will help introduce more light to your sensor for higher quality video. Our recommended depth ranges are based on ideal shooting conditions in sunny, clear water with high visibility. If the visibility drops or you're in overcast weather, shift the depth recommendation on the filter 10 feet or 3 meters. For example, use the dive filter at 10 feet or 3 meters and the deep filter at 35 feet or 10 meters, and kick on your video lights at 70 feet or about 21 meters. The Hero 13 can also use both filters and video lights at the same time. We have found this to result in punchier, more saturated colors than just using video lights on their own, which looks a little more natural. We definitely recommend trying both options together to see what look best fits you. Next, we'll make a preset for macro to use with our Plus 15 Macrame Mini and the Plus 10 close-up lens. There are only 2 settings differences between wide angle and macro settings, so it's a pretty easy change. We're going to make a new custom preset the same way we did for wide. The only changes we're going to make will be to the digital lens and zoom. For digital lens, we're going to change it to L for linear rather than wide. We want a tighter field of view to fill the frame with a smaller subject, and linear will help accomplish this. Next, in the capture field, we want to set the zoom to its maximum at 1.4 times. This is the tightest field of view and will make small subjects appear bigger in the frame. Zooming in will prevent us from seeing the corners of the lens or any reflections caused by the clear GoPro housing. The Plus 15 Macrame includes a focus stick, which is used to find critical focus on small subjects. To find the focus point, align the notch on the focus stick for your camera model to the front of the Macrame. The focus range is about 1 inch and the end of the stick will be right in the middle of that range. Make sure not to get much closer or farther away from your subject, as you'll miss focus and your subject will be soft. Flip over to the Plus 10 close-up lens if you need to back up in order to fit larger subjects into frame. Now with those settings complete, go ahead and name it Macro 4K 60 or whatever frame rate and resolution you're using and save it to your presets. GoPros are video-centric cameras, and even though they have the ability to take photos, they have a number of limitations that make them less than ideal for underwater photo rigs. GoPros can't synchronize with strobes, so you're limited to video lights for lighting. GoPros also have a fixed focus point and don't have a focus control button, making photos even more difficult to take. GoPros are fantastic entry-level, simple video cameras. If your primary goal is photography, you should definitely consider other cameras instead, and we have a ton of great options for those of you just starting out. That being said, here are the best settings for the Hero 13 if you want to take some basic snapshots. All the fundamentals and the techniques we covered, including how to use filters, video lights, and lenses, apply the same to photo as they do to video. First, set the camera to photo mode by pressing the mode button on the side of the GoPro until you see photo. In this mode, we'll set our own wide angle and macro presets that are distinct from video. Now go to your custom presets, then create custom preset, then select photo. From here, we can customize our exact settings. For wide angle, keep the lens set to wide and change the output setting to RAW for the highest quality images. The default output of Super Photo will automatically process your images, which may result in some crunchy, weird-looking photos. Now let's scroll down to change the EV comp to -0.5. This will keep our highlights from blowing out the image. Next, change denoise from high, the default, to medium. The last step is to turn off all shortcuts and name your setting wide before saving it. When you're in the water, go ahead and use your lights and flip filters the same way you would for video. Our next photo preset will be for macro. Starting back at Create Custom Preset, select Photo, then set Digital Lens to Linear. We'll need to set the output to Standard this time, as RAW will not let us zoom in, which as we covered before, is critical for macro shooting. Once Standard is selected, go ahead and change the zoom 2 times. If we head over to the Pro Tunes menu, we'll once again change EV Comp to -0.5 and Denoise to Medium. With that done, all you have to do is remove the shortcuts and name and save your setting as macro. Now, just shoot the GoPro using the +15 macromate or +10 close-up lens with a single video light overhead, using the focus stick to find critical focus. So that was everything you need to know about the best underwater settings and accessories for the GoPro Hero 13 Black. Use the wide-angle presets with the filters, lights, and Sharp Wide Lens Pro to get the best color and image quality, and for the macro presets, use the +15 macromate and +10 close-up lens along with a tripod and a video light. Don't forget to download the PDF copy of the settings guide so you can keep it on your laptop, phone, or tablet, or you can print it out and keep it with your gear. You can find this linked in the description or at backscatter.com. If you have any questions, just give us a call or send us an email. Remember, your purchases from Backscatter or any of our authorized dealers help us keep making more of these videos. We have free lifetime tech support on every purchase, we ship every day, and we dive, shoot, and service everything that we sell. I'm Thomas from Backscatter, and I'll see you next time.